This is the last video and it's the main one. We built the feature. We'll check the plan is solid, set up the work, then let the developer agent write the code, review it, and test it. First, before we write any code, we need a readiness check. This makes sure the PRD, the architecture, and all the stories are lined up with no gaps and nothing contradicting. For that, we will use BMAD architect agent who has a dedicated flow for that. As we can see, there is a workflow BMAD check implementation readiness, so let's use it. So it analyzed our documentation for this feature and didn't find any issues, just one warning that we don't have UX design, but since it's optional, we are safe to proceed. The implementation readiness validation is completed. It generated us this document. Let's look at it briefly. And we can see it didn't find any critical issues, some minor tweaks, but they are not really important, and we can proceed. If it had found a real gap, it would flag it here, and we would fix the plan first, instead of wasting time later in code. That's the whole point of this step. The next step is sprint planning. This turns the epic into a plan the developer agent follows, one story at a time. For this, we will use the dev agent. Here we can see all the available workflows for the dev agent. Right now we need this one, sprint planning. And it generated successfully our sprint status. Here we can see a short summary, but let's go to the actual file it generated, sprint-status.yaml. Let's look at it. We can think of it as our board for this feature. It lists the epics and each story with a status next to each other. Right now, everything says backlog. Nothing started yet. As the developer builds each story, the status moves to in progress, then review, then done. So this one file is a single source of truth for where the work stands. We can start now with implementing our first story, the read-only review page. For this, let's call the dev agent in a new chat. Until now, all the workflows were one-time actions for all feature. But next actions will be a loop, the same for each story. Create a detailed story doc, Let the developer implement it, then review it. Let's do the first story in full. So the first workflow here will be create story. Let's use it. It creates a detailed story document, then later the dev agent will use for development. Our story file was generated, so let's look at it. So here it is, and as we can see, it's a lot more than just a title and checklist. It's a complete specification for this one piece of work. It's got the acceptance criteria, then goes step-by-step task list with exact files that we need to touch, even some database migration commands we can see, and it's all grounded in our real code. It actually read the existing files to get the signatures and the writings right, instead of guessing. Some dev notes and architecture patterns to follow. And here in the end, it draws the line between this story and the next, so the developer stays in scope. Everything they need is right there in this file. Next, the part everyone wants to see. The developer agent writes the actual code. Let's open a new chat dialog and call our dev agent. We are already familiar with a few workflows that we have for dev agent, like create story we just used, sprint planning. Now we need to use the DS, the develop story. And now let's wait for the results. And now the dev agent completed its work. We can see here that it worked straight through the task list from the story document we created. The entity, the specification, the entity framework config, all the migrations, the page, the catalog link, unit tests, every task ticked off. Now let's take a look at the actual changes here. So it created and modified quite a lot of files. For example, this one, we can see that it followed our rules, that the review entity is in application core with no framework dependencies. Here we have a specification for the query. So it actually matched our style, no, not its own. We can see that also it wrote a lot of tests. So we have some unit tests here. Also some integration tests and functional tests. And also we can see that it ran the .NET test command and all tests passed. 99 tests. And also it updated our story documents with actual status. Now it's review here and in sprint planning. So we can track the actual status. Now we need to review these files. All one by one. We should do it manually as well, but also we can do it using dev agent because the dev agent has a dedicated workflow for that. So let's use this. Let's open a new chat here and again call our dev agent. Here we can see dev workflows that are familiar to us, and we can use code review one. The important thing here that a fresh independent reviewer chat, it helps us to catch things the author might have talked itself into. It's like having a second engineer look at the pull request, not the person who wrote it. And it goes through the change and checks the things that matter. Does the code actually meet each acceptance criteria? Does it follow our conventions and patterns? Are there any bugs or gaps? Is anything out of scope, etc.? Then it gives a verdict. Now the code review is completed. We can see that the agent found even a few issues and fixed them along the way. So now everything is clear and the story can be marked done. One important thing here, this doesn't mean you skip reviewing it yourself. It's a strong first pass that catches a lot, but a human should still read the code before it goes in. Treat it as help during review, not a replacement. And now story 1 is done. The second story, actually submitting a review, goes through the exact same loop. I will move through it faster since you've already seen each step and will show the final result. Now the dev agent completed all its flow. So for story 1, 2, it's quite the same as for previous one. First, we created a story document. Then the dev agent followed all the tasks from this story document. And another dev agent completed a comprehensive code review to ensure that all the acceptance criteria are followed and that our code standards and patterns from defined in project context also were followed. Now the big question, does it all work and did we break anything? So to check this, I ran all the tests in the application. So let's see the results. We can see that all passed. The new tests for both stories and all existing tests still passes. So we added the whole feature without breaking anything that was already there. One thing worth mentioning, the developer agent didn't just write unit tests. It wrote unit, integration, and functional tests as part of building each story. The one thing, it didn't write end-to-end tests. If you want those, plus a deeper dedicated QA flow, BMAD has a separate test architect agent for that. We just didn't include it, but for most cases, these are completely enough. Tests passing is one thing, but let's actually see it in the application. Here is the catalog. Every product now has a review button right under Add to Basket. That came from story 1. Let's open it. This is a new review page. It's a brand new product, so we get the empty state here. No reviews yet, busy first. And because I'm not logged in, it just shows log in to write a review prompt. No form yet. That's the login gate from story 2. Let's log in. And now that I'm logged in, the write a review form appears. A rating from 1 to 5 and an optional review. I'll give it 5 stars and a quick comment. Let's submit. And there it is. My review shows up with the average rating and the count updated. That's the whole feature, working in the real app. The catalog link and the review page from story 1, and the login gate and the submission form story 2. So let's step back and look at the whole thing. We started with an existing application that had no BMAD on it at all. First, we onboarded it, installed BMAD, had it read the codebase, write the documentation, and capture our coding rules. Then we planned from an idea to a brief, a PRD, an architecture, and stories. And then we built. The developer wrote the code, reviewed it, tested it, and we saw it live. And that's the difference on a Brownfield project. At every step, the agents understood the code that was already there and followed our patterns, instead of inventing new ones. On a brand new project, you would start with more upfront process. Here, documenting the existing code took its place. And this same flow scales up. For a big system, you just run it per service. That's the full BMAD Brownfield flow, from an existing codebase to a shipped feature. Thanks for watching.